Hello, everyone. I'm Vanessa, once again with the Historical Society of Frankfurt, and thanks so much for tuning in to our first of our spring live streaming lectures. So glad to see you here, and we really hope that at some point this year we will end up seeing you in person. Tonight we have a lecture, or rather a papers read again, because we have such a lovely collection of those. And it is, for Women's History Month, we have decided to honor one of our prolific, very early on members, Mabel Corson. She did a lot with the Historical Society and I think was one of our first members back when we started prior to even 1933. So it is going to be read tonight by our president, Jerry Kolankiewicz. And let's introduce him now.
Am I on?
Hi, Jerry.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Hey.
So you mentioned Mabel. Can we show the picture that has Mabel in it?
Yes. Here we go.
Okay, that's some board members. I think that was taken in the early 50s. And the lady on the side there, that's Mabel Corson later in life. That's about 20 years after she wrote the story that I'm going to read you tonight.
Right.
So let me just talk a little bit about Mabel first before I get into the story that she wrote. And this is from her obituary. She passed away in February of 1962. And it says, Mabel Corson, second and only surviving daughter of Robert T. and Eliza Deal Corson, a lifelong resident of Frankfurt, died Tuesday, February 13th, 1962. She attended public and Friends schools and Temple University. She won a gold medal contest at the Philadelphia Conservatory of Music, from which institution she was graduated in 1907. And I wanted to also mention that Mabel Corson is connected to what we sometimes refer to as the Deal House, which was recently renovated by a guy named Andy Cohen. He's the new owner of it, and he did a great job. And can we show the drawing that Mabel did? Okay, I guess we'll get to that later.
Wait, which drawing? I'm sorry.
Oh, the drawing of the 1548 Adams Avenue.
Ah, gotcha. There we go. Sorry.
Yeah, Mabel Corson was an artist, and she drew this picture of the house. And as you can see here, it's a standalone house. But currently, if you've seen it recently, it's wedged in between two other buildings. And as I was saying before, Andy Cohen recently did a great job renovating and restoring the house. And as far as we know, this is the oldest house in Frankfurt. It was built around 1728. Okay, so I'll continue now with Mabel Corson. Her main interest was in the business world. She entered the law offices of her father and was the first woman notary in Frankfurt. She was a member of the Presbyterian Church of Frankfurt and for many years a Sunday school teacher. She was treasurer of the Women's Association and in 1920 elected treasurer of foreign missions for the Philadelphia North Presbyterian Society, serving 11 years. Among her many activities were the board of managers of the Frankfurt Day Nursery, which is a building that still stands to this day, treasurer of the Historical Society of Frankfurt, secretary of the Regents Club of Philadelphia, chairman of the Genealogical Committee, and a lifelong member of the Historical Society of Frankfurt, a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution, the Welcome Society and the Huguenot Society, and the Daughters of Colonial Wars. Miss Corson retired in 1959, and she passed away in February of 1962. So that brings me to the actual story that Mabel Corson wrote, a narrative written in August of 1929, and it's called The Silent Sentry of the King's Highway. Which is a chronicle of the happenings in Frankfurt as viewed from the northeast corner of Frankfurt Avenue and Church Street. So we're basically talking about an elm tree here, or a group of them, and I believe we have a picture of the original building. So it's one of these trees in the front, which had grown a little bit more in later years. Okay, so we who are about to die salute you. It would seem that the old tree spoke, the tall elm, the last of the silent sentries of the King's Highway, standing in the yard of the Presbyterian Church of Frankfurt at the corner of Church Lane, which we now know as Church Street. And well might the old elm speak and tell the story of 3 centuries as it had seen and as it had heard from its fathers, if the busy passerby would stop his automobile long enough to listen. For its fathers were young when Penn's colony was founded. They were old when in 1773 they relinquished their watch to the silent sentry and its brothers, mere saplings then, which had been brought from the Willtown plantation of Henry Rohr, a church founder. Now, though it still towers above the elevated railroad tracks, it is a lame and gray old man. Its branches are clipped back, some have been cut off, some scars mar its trunk, and through its still green leaves, a network of wires eats into its heart. There is no man who has witnessed such changes, nor anyone who could tell such a tale of progress and romance. Shall we pause and listen to its story? My father saw the narrow Indian trail grow into a post road, the Conestoga and the stagecoach give place to the horse, and later the trolley car. The elevated railroad is no longer a wonder. It is a matter of course. It is impossible to determine the number of automobiles which pass in a day, and that's probably even more true today than it was in 1929. But in 1928, I waved my branches in salute to the Graf Zeppelin and its first transatlantic flight. The fathers saw the coming of the Swedes. Every first day, they saw the Quakers walking east on Church Lane to their unpretentious meeting house, the first in this locality. The German settlers came next, and in due time selected for their place of worship the very spot on which the silent sentries stood. On May 4th, 1770, they looked down on a notable gathering met together to lay the cornerstone of their church and saw the joy of accomplished purposes in the faces of the 4 men, George Castor Sr., Henry Rohr, Rudolph Neff, and Sirach Schutte, whose efforts had brought this great day to pass. The Reverend Christian Faring laid the cornerstone and thereafter rode over from Germantown once a month to preach to the little group, mostly of German Swiss extraction, in the German language. The building was a 1-story structure, 30 by 40, costing in all about $2,400. There was no attempt to beautify and no effort made for the comfort of the congregation, for the pine benches were backless and the preaching was long. Soon there was preaching twice a month. The congregation of the Market Square Church in Germantown still sharing their pastors with their Frankfurt brethren. In the early days of the 19th century, the little church was outgrown in more ways than one. The voice of the young people was heard, insisting upon having the service in English. So in 1807, we find the congregation becoming affiliated with the Philadelphia Presbytery, and the new church built in 1809 on the same spot was a Presbyterian church. The first person received into membership in the Presbyterian Church of Frankfurt was Anne Decatur, mother of the great naval hero Stephen Decatur, and the father of the famous Commodore, was elected a church trustee in 1819. The new building served until 1859, when the present structure was erected. Do we have a picture of the present structure? There. And that's the church that we know as the Pink Church, because this is a black and white photo, but if you passed it by, you know that the color is pink. And here you can also see the trees have grown up a little bit more. Okay, the new building served until 1859, when the present structure was erected. The doors of the church have never been closed on the Lord's Day, and descendants of the founders of the 5th and 6th generations still worship within its historic walls. And that was 1929, so it's probably 8 or 9 or 10 generations by this time. The year 1815 brought the Sunday school, and from that time, Sunday became a livelier day than it was in the days of the fathers. 7 little girls comprised the first class. Boys were admitted later, and George Rohr, a wounded revolutionary soldier, son of Henry the Founder, who spent his last years caring for the church and jealously guarding its traditions, proved himself a zealous keeper of the sanctuary. Soon after the founding of the church, rumors of war and the calm disturbed the calm of the little village. Soldiers are marching on the King's Highway, tired men in blue and buff, but all filled with an earnest, consecrated purpose. During the days of the British occupation of Philadelphia, an occasional troop of redcoats clatters by on forage bent. The local militia under Captain Henry Young and Captain Isaac Worrell drilled in secret and stood ready at the call. The local company of the flying camp went to Trenton, and the silent sentries saw it all. Although no actual fighting took place in our midst, history hovered near. Some say that it was in a summer house on an estate a block south, then owned by Henry Drinker, that Thomas Jefferson made the first draft of the Declaration of Independence, and I believe we have a picture of that as well. So that's where Thomas Jefferson is believed to have written the first draft of the Declaration. It was down Church Lane that Lydia Darrah rode one day. And if you're not familiar with who Lydia Darrah is, she's another famous woman in Frankfurt history who was what we would call a spy, and she delivered important information to the American freedom fighters. So at the King's Highway, she turned her horse south and proceeded to the grist mill of Thomas Parsons. There were British guards at Thomas Parsons' mill, but the brave woman was able to impart to the miller the news of an impending British attack. Our usually quiet village witnessed a strange sight when, under cover of night, a little band of Hessians captured at Trenton was brought in and confined in the church cellar, guarded by the Continental soldiers and the silent sentries of the churchyard. Washington and his army passed by on the way to Yorktown. September of the year 1799 brought a peculiar honor to Frankfurt. It is known to few of its present residents that for a number of days in September of that year, the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, because of fear of another epidemic of yellow fever, convened in Frankfurt. The records state that the court met in the schoolhouse or academy in the village of Frankfurt. The silent sentries saw the dignified men of old who turned off the King's Highway at Church Lane and, passing under their branches, proceeded east to Paul's Lane, then south 1 block to the academy. The great Lafayette passed under the proudly waving trees in 1824. Just about 200 feet beyond, the residence of General Worrell, a triumphal arch was built across the street, and here the great general was welcomed. And there's some dispute about that arch being built at that time. But I won't get into that right now. In later days, Francis E. Willard, the noted temperance worker, came to the church to lecture, and John B. Gow, that fiery orator of the same cause, spoke his last words here, for he was stricken in the pulpit. Many are the men of note and learning who have paused at this corner. 6 known soldiers of the Revolution rest in the churchyard: Henry Rohr and George Rohr. 2 of the 6 sons, when Henry Rohr, one of the church founders, went to the war. Henry Young, his son-in-law, Rudolph Neff, himself a founder, and 50 years old when he answered his country's call. Frederick Castor, one of the 2 soldier sons of George Castor, another founder whose age forbade his enlistment, and Martin, who later became a trustee. These 6 graves bear bronze markers inscribed U.S. War Veteran 1776. 1,500 and the youth of the town, that's supposed to be 1,500 of the youth of the town, fought in the Civil War. Many did not return. During the war, the trees, the churchyard sheltered the house, sheltered the Dorcas Society while they sewed for the soldiers and rolled bandages. The names of 76 of the church's sons are written on the tablet on the walls to honor those who served in the World War. The little town has grown. It is now part of the great city of Philadelphia. The King's Highway is paved with asphalt, and there are 2 trolley tracks on it, while every 4 minutes a train thunders by on the L. Frankfurt is a busy, thriving town, forging ahead, yet rich in history and memories. With the passing of the summer of 1929, another memory is added to the increasing list. The silent Sentry is no more. Okay, and these are some of the the captions on the tombstones of the Revolutionary soldiers in the graveyard behind the church. The one says, "In memory of Frederick Castor, was departed this life the 27th of August, 1800, age 61 years, 4 months and 6 days. My day well spent, I rest content, my cares and sufferings o'er. The morning come, I'll burst the tomb and rise again to fight no more." Okay, and in memory of George Rohr, who departed this life July 11th, 1834, aged 89 years, 5 months and 6 days. And Rudolph Neff, who departed this life February 14th, 1809, age 82. And sacred to the memory of Alexander Martin, a native of Ireland who departed this life the 20th day of August, 1821, aged 74 years and 1 month. Early in life, he entered the army of his adopted country and served her cause with credit to himself. And when her independence was secured, he retired to the peaceful pursuits of commerce. This monument is erected by his sorrowing widow, his faithful wife, for 43 years. Though lost to sight, yet dear to remembrances, he was kind and affectionate husband, a generous and benevolent neighbor, and in the poor man, the poor man always found a friend. Okay. So besides that information, if you've seen our Walking Toward book guide, there's also a little bit about the Presbyterian Church of Frankford and the manse in that. The original church, built in 1770, was Deutsch Reformed and served a German-speaking congregation. The Italian Romanesque style church of earth-colored stucco was built circa 1856 and designed by architect John MacArthur, who later designed Philadelphia's City Hall. In the beginning of the 19th century, the younger American-born congregants no longer felt the Deutsch Reformed Church met their needs and adopted the Presbyterian faith, as did their sister church in Germantown, the Market Square Presbyterian Church. The church is referred to locally as the Pink Church because of the color of its stucco. The church's cemetery has a number of Revolutionary War graves, some of which I read the information from. Hessian soldiers captured in the Battle of Trenton during America's War for Independence were imprisoned in the original church at this site. The manse, the minister's home of the Presbyterian Church of Frankfurt, was built circa 1830 in the Greek Revival style, in stucco and a projecting portico at the entrance and tripartite windows. And here's another picture of that house that I was talking about earlier that Andy Cohen has recently restored. So that just about wraps it up. Did we show all the pictures?
Not quite. I'm gonna put up the two of the houses that she had drawn as images. This first one here is the home of Charles E. Deal. I don't know if you have any commentary about that one.
No.
Okay, and let's see. And this also was a lovely drawing that Mabel Corson made. Home of Francis Deal, not necessarily in our neck of the woods, but not too far off. Hunting Park and Wissahickon Avenue.
Okay.
And that's all we've got.
Well, unless anybody has any questions they want to send in.
Yeah, let's see. I forgot to offer that up as I was speaking earlier, but I did post it in the comments if anybody wanted to ask any questions, but it doesn't look like I got any takers thus far, but I know that there's like a 15-second delay, so we can chit chat and see if anybody posts any questions. Wonderfully done. That was a really nice story that she wrote, and yeah, kind of a cool remembrance thing for her. It's nice to see how someone viewed that church as it progressed and changed over the years.
Yeah.
I know somebody earlier said she spent many Sundays there. I think that was Barbara Fairhurst Todd. She's been watching, and I don't know what time frame it was when she was there, but probably not that early on. We've got a couple comments here, though, and I'll post those up.
Oh, okay.
Kathleen Katrina McTammany. Thank you. Very nice story. So, Jerry, do we have any info about what's going on at the Historical Society this coming season? I know we haven't quite gotten our lectures firmed up yet, but is there anything cool that we're working on and anything that we should entice people with?
Well, yeah, we're looking forward to getting our Civil War drum back that we sent off last summer to have restored. I don't know if we've had any progress reports on that lately, but they're making progress on that. Off the top of my head, I can't really think of anything else right now. I've been thinking about this all day.
Yeah, I know. Well, I think it's been a slow year for everybody, and it's good that things are just kind of getting back on their feet, hopefully, and we'll continue to keep up with live streaming lectures. We really love to see that people are tuning in. It looks like there's like over 20 of you tonight, and that is awesome. And also, we programming, it's been a little slow this year as well. It's hard to rally people to get something done. But if anybody has topics that they're interested in, or if they have any questions, something that might spark some interest, we are happy to indulge. And, if there's a program that you'd love to see, let us know. Thanks. Brian Harris says we're here listening. That's great.
We recently sent out our membership renewal letters. So if you're not a member and you'd like to get one, you can look up on our Facebook page or our website, and I believe you can register that way, or send in the form.
Yes, yeah. So you can buy or purchase a membership on our website. It's pretty clearly marked there. It's the Historical Society of Frankford.org. And yeah, there are all levels of membership, so you can purchase whichever one is right for you. You can also purchase research requests there if you have some research that you're interested in. And Barbara, who also mentioned earlier that she had been there, she says that she was around in the church between the 60s and the 70s, which is really cool. That's another time period that would be interesting to hear about. And to address her question about, is the Historical Society open to the public? We are not currently. We are kind of toying around with the idea of taking appointments for one, possibly two people, if that seems reasonable, depending on comfort levels of people staying safely socially distanced. And, if you have some research or questions you'd like answered, but we are not open for lectures and standard tours. I did think of something that we are working on, though, right now, is the Preservation Alliance of Philadelphia often is offering tours, and they have included us once again in their tour offerings, and we're working on revamping the tour. So keep an eye out for anything there. Outside tours of the area are definitely something that's going to be more easily done in the near future. So keep an eye out and see if they announce anything. Preservation Alliance in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So cool. Well, I think that just about covers it. I don't see any more questions posted, so last chance, everybody.
Well, thank you for joining us just the same.
Yeah, absolutely. This was fun. All right, everyone. We'll we'll sign off, and we hope to see you next month. It's going to be first Tuesday of the month. I always get confused. Is it first or second? Second Tuesday. Sorry, second Tuesday at 7:30. We'll scrounge up another one for you. And once again, shoot us any comments or requests if you're having a topic that you're interested in. All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much.